All praise be to Allah. May Allah's peace and blessings be upon His Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, and those who follow in his footsteps till the last day. Last time we are still talking about the third source of fiqh by the agreement of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and there is no need, to talk about the disagreement of others. Excuse me. By the agreement of the people of the Sunnah, Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and there is no regard for those who violated, this rule from the Shia and the Kharijites and the other sects. And we gave last time, we said there are many actually hadith, there are many there are other, we have another, evidences other than these two evidences. We have, he gives only the ayah from Surah An-Nisa about وَمَن يُشَاقِقِ الرَّسُولَ وَيَتَّبِعْ غَيْرَ سَبِيلِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Whoever contends with the messenger after guidance has been plainly conveyed to him and follows a path other than the path, and other than that, becoming to men of faith, we shall leave him in the path he has chosen and make him enter hell. What an evil refuge. And the other hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, when he talked about a group of his followers that will always remain on the right path. There are other evidences, like what? Like the, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ. We have made you into a just nation to be witnesses over people. So to be a witness, on others, their deeds and their rules, means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this ummah, the Ijmaa. And from this ayah, وَكَذَلِكَ جَعَلْنَاكُمْ أُمَّةً وَسَطًا لِتَكُونُوا شُهَدَاءَ عَلَى النَّاسِ means the Ijmaa of this ummah, disapproves anything else, to the extent as, and when we talk about Ijmaa again, we return back to say that this is the Ijmaa of the ulama of the ummah who has reached the level of Ijtihad. The Ijmaa of the masses, or whatsoever, we talk about ignorance, or whatever people in positions without knowledge of Sharia, without having the tools for Ijtihad, this is disregarded and not from the Ijmaa we are talking. تنازعتم في شيء فردوه إلى الله والرسول إن كنتم تؤمنون بالله واليوم الآخر. So, فإن تنازعتم, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when we disagree about a matter, it means there are matters that will be of agreement, So these matters of agreement must be, ijma' amongst the ummah, There is also the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam get unanimously, agree unanimously on a straightness. And the Ummah here means those who responded to his Sharia, and who represents them? The scholars of Islam, the grounded scholars of Islam. And now, we should know that Ijmaa of the Ummah on a matter would either be, truth or falsehood, okay? And, it cannot, the Ijmaa of the Ummah cannot be false at all. Huh? Why? Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made this Ummah, okay, as per the Quran and per the Sunnah, to be witnesses on the truth, to the extent that on the Day of Judgment, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala get the believers from this Ummah, prophets before us, like Noah alayhi salam, his people will belay him and they will say, you haven't conveyed the message. And he will be asked for witnesses, and he will, say the Ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, is the believers among us, the Ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, who are witnesses for me, and Allah will accept their witness, their shahada. We have to know that Ijmaa is of two kinds, okay? Qat'i and Dhanni, okay? Qat'i and Dhanni. Not, yes, let's talk about time of Ijmaa, because this is one of the aspects that we need to talk about. So, Ijmaa of the Ummah is regarded as one of the sources of Islam. However, there are certain conditions, and we said actually this was in the definition, okay? In the definition, we can take from the definition the what's the ulama called the conditions for ijtihad. Here we said the agreement, because ijma is a general word that comprises many things. Huh? It includes all that's not pertaining to it by the following reasons: the exemption of all scholars worthy of making legal decisions is the scholar that does not reach the level of ijtihad. Okay, let alone the common people and those who are in their category. There is no consideration for their agreement or disagreement at all. Huh? Those other than the non-ulama, grounded ulama. Also, an exception to this is the agreement of some scholars and excluding others. There's from the Ummah of the Prophet ﷺ, Ijma' should be from the Ummah, those who have accepted the message of the Prophet ﷺ and the deen. Okay. After his death, this is another condition that must be after, the Messenger ﷺ had departed this world, because otherwise there will be no Ijma', because the Wahy is still in revelation. Ijma' in any time possible. Time. So can we read the time of Ijma' so that we can come to know it? So Abdul Majid, you are there?
Yeah, you want me to read, Sheikh?
Yes, time of Ijma'. Or anyone, maybe.
Okay. Can you roll it down, Sheikh?
Yes, sure. Wait. Okay. Time of Ijma'.
Time of Ijma'. It has been mentioned earlier in the definition of Ijma' that it is general for any time after the death of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. There is no difference whatsoever between the time of the Sahaba and other than them. This is the opinion of the majority of scholars, as opposed to those who limit it to the time of Sahaba alone, like Dawood az-Zahiri, and those in agreement with him, claiming that the smaller number of the Sahaba and their confinement and their lack of personal motives have made it easy for them to do ijma and to inform about it. As such, it is possible to use it as proof as opposed to those who came after them. Their large numbers and their varying motives and weaknesses in battles against leaders is difficult customarily to arrive at ijma from them and to know about it. The Jumhur, however, refuted this agreement, saying that persons of ill repute, despite their large numbers and their
Yes, the Jumhur have refuted this.
yeah, persons of ill repute, despite their large numbers and their, can you roll it down, Sheikh? Up.
Yes. Yes.
Their varying desires have come together and agreed on falsehood and informed about it, like the Jews in their rejection of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, ijma of Muslims about the truth is more worthy of occurring and being made known. From among the proofs of the Jumhur, the proofs that refer to ijma are general. There is no specification for any particular time. As such, the ijma of any proof, any period is proof. Is the termination of the period of scholars a condition for the validity of their ijma or not? If the ijma occurs from the scholars in a particular period, is it that the ijma is valid from the time of its occurrence, or is it necessary for its validity that their period?
Wait. There was a break when you said.
Okay.
Yes, there was a break. But wait here. Let's. He said about the time of ijma. Okay, is it only at the time of the Sahaba? No, the majority of the ulama, and this is that ijma can be after the time of after the Sahaba era. Now here he said, is the termination of the period of scholars a condition for the validity of their ijma or not? And it means if we say that the Sahaba ijma, would we consider their ijma, for example, if they had agreed on something at, after 12th Hijrah, after the death of the Prophet, then could we consider that ijma from the 12th of Hijrah or after the last alim of the Sahaba death? Okay, this is what was the meaning of the termination. Huh? So he said if the ijma occurs from the scholars in a particular period, is it that the ijma is valid from the time of its occurrence, or is it necessary for its validity that their period must terminate? And all two opinions about this. Yeah, go ahead. There are. You can read.
Is it, yeah. Is there occurs? There are two opinions, and they are both narrations of Ahmad, rahimahullah. The correct version is that of the Jumhur, and certain factors refer to that. Number one, the proof for ijma from the Quran and Sunnah did not necessitate the termination of its period.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Can you stop recording? Stop recording. Let me. You can go ahead.
I'll read now.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Yes,
Second, the Tabi'in have used the ijma of the Sahabas as proof before their period has terminated. And if that had been a condition, they would not have used it as proof before their passing away. 3, the condition for the termination of a period necessitates that they cannot be ijma until the day of judgment. This is so because there is not any period free that individuals are born and they grow up and achieve the level of making legal decision, ijtihad, and before they have passed away, that none like them is born, and so on. Whatever that leads to the invalidity of ijma is also invalid.
Yes. Okay. طيب, now, yeah, let's say, he's talking, he said here, the correct version is that of the Jamhur, okay? And certain factors refer to that. And the Jamhur, they said, termination or, the end of the time for those ulama, the death of all of them, is not a condition for ijma' to be regarded, okay? However, if one of those group later, from those who reach the level of ijtihad, and these are, let's go again to say it's hypothetical, more than established things. Usually when the ulama make an ijma' on an issue, especially if they get together, rarely you find later, for example, someone of them would change his view, okay? Because usually ijma' is based on evidences and clearly known by the ulama. And for example, the ijma' that riba is haram, is forbidden. We cannot find anyone from the Sahaba who had said, no, riba is not, it might be lawful. No, it cannot be. Yeah? So this is what he meant here by the time of ijma'. And the time of ijma', usually the ulama, they say each, you can say, tabaqa, layer of people of ijtihad would be regarded, their ijma' would be regarded, for example. It cannot be again, cancelled later by another, those who come later, and they would disregard such ijma'. Such ijma' cannot be, changed. Okay, this is in general, what's meant. The benefits of this difference, go.
The benefits of this difference. Two things are established due to this difference. One, with the opinion that it is a condition that the period must terminate before the ijma is valid, it makes it permissible for some of the scholars to withdraw his opinion, and he is not considered to differ from the ijma because it is not valid. As for the opinion that it is not conditioned, then it is not permissible for anyone to withdraw his agreed opinion on ijma. This is so because the ijma in brief can either be on truth or falsehood, and the latter is omitted due to the proofs indicating that. As such, the former is necessary and it is truth, and it is not permissible to abstain from what is the truth. Number two, according to the opinion that it is a condition, it is necessary to agree with whoever grew up and reached the level of ijtihad. If not, the ijma cannot be accomplished because it cannot be valid except by the termination of that period. And according to the opinion that it is not a condition, then it is not permissible for him to differ from the ijma because it is already accomplished. Will explain, Sheikh?
Yes, it's a bit complicated, here. But what does he mean if we say that ijma' is finished and accepted from the very first outset of getting to know that the ulama established that agreement, then no one of these, no one can change his mind later and would be regarded. Plus, that ijma' would be established and finished. Okay. However, in the other opinion, that no, ijma' should be till all of those ulama, die. The last of them, for example, say the ulama of the ummah in that layer, in that era, they were 100, okay, and those 100, they agreed on something. Let's say they made a meeting and they agreed on an issue. It has been established, published, known by people, and the masses started to know and realize that this is the opinion of those 100 ulama. Would that be regarded ijma'? We have two opinions. Some of them, they said no, till all of those 100 ulama, died, okay? After the death of those ulama, we would regard it as ijma'. If, for example, they died 90, 99, but still one, they said we cannot consider it ijma' till this alim dies. Because when we say he died, khalas, finished. We know that that was his opinion. Is what's meant. Others, they said no. Once they made ijma', no one of them would, change his opinion, or would his opinion after such, unanimity or such agreement, could be regarded. This is the meaning of it, okay? Usually, the ulama, we have a saying of the ulama. They say, can we regard, if, for example, 99 of those ulama, they agreed upon a certain issue, and one of them disagreed with them upon that issue, can we regard that as ijma'? A question here, we have some of the ulama who say, yes, we can regard the 99 or 90, for example, or 95, to be ijma', okay, even if those disagreed. But the majority, they say no, we cannot regard that as ijma' till they agree all together. But if someone, for example, says, khalas, if they are the majority, they agreed, then we should accept their agreement and say this is ijma'. Okay. If one wants to refute him, he would say, the ulama who came, later, they said, okay, the majority of them, and most of the ulama, they said such agreement is not regarded. Such number is not regarded. But according to you, those are many who disregard such ijma', then this is a refutation on your evidence. You got the point? I want you to try to visualize the matter. And this person, he says, I regard the ijma' of the ulama, if they are 90 or 99, okay, they agreed as ijma'. It is said to him that the ulama who came after that, some of them regarded what you said as true, but majority, okay, the majority of the ulama, they disregarded that and they said this is not, enough to be ijma'. Now, according to your rule, you should take which opinion? The minority who said that's not ijma', that's ijma', or the majority who said it is not ijma'. According to his rule, this is the ulama, they say, الدليل المنقلب. There's an evidence against his evidence. You get the point? This is one of the issues that sometimes a person might find it difficult, to understand, the usool and fiqh, the usool, okay? That's why majority of the ulama, they said we would regard ijma' of the whole ulama who reached the level of ijtihad, not even if some of those ulama who's known, they are the same level of ijtihad, and he has his opinion, we cannot regard that ijma' if he disagreed with them. I hope, inshallah, this is clear. Okay. If it is not clear, let me know. Like legal evidence of ijma'. Okay. Go ahead.
Legal evidence of Ijmaa. Ijmaa cannot be valid except of its legality from the Quran and Sunnah. Some scholars are of the opinion that it is valid on the basis of ijtihad, independent judgment in theological question. These ideas were rejected by Sheikh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah in his book Ma'arij al-Usool ila anna usul ad-din wa furu' bayanahu ar-Rasul, wherein he said, there isn't a legal question whereby the Ijma approves of except that there is a reference to the Quran and Sunnah.
And what's meant here, what's meant here by Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah, that it cannot happen that there would be no proof for something that the Ummah is in need of. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has perfected and completed the message for us. That's why every tiny thing, or whether it is so minor or great and major for the deen or dunya, okay, which we need to know about, but the Sharia has brought to us. But sometimes it comes difficult for the people due to the scarcity of knowledge or the shallow knowledge. Why? Because we know that the Prophet ﷺ, the Sahaba, they said, the Prophet ﷺ taught us everything, even the etiquettes for relieving oneself. So how could, major matters not be explained? And the Sahabi said that the Prophet ﷺ did not die and there was a bird flipping its wings, but the Prophet ﷺ had told us and spoke about it and gave us a news of it. So this means that the deen is complete and perfect, must be there. But sometimes it might not have reached, you. We know that there is ijma' of the ummah, but we cannot know what's the evidence sometimes, or it's not that clear on what basis they made their ijma' on. But we should realize and recognize and believe, because we know the deen is complete, that there is, authentic narration from the Sunnah, or there is an evidence from the Quran they based that on. Especially, as you know, in the later, in the early periods of Islam, there was no recordings, there was no writings of everything the ulama they do. Okay, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has preserved the deen for us and has preserved, the ijma' of the ummah. And it might happen that some people would think that this is ijma', but later the ulama, they find it was not ijma' in some issues, but not in, there are books of ijma' like al-Mundhiri, al-Ijma' al-Mundhiri, Ibn Qudama also, he wrote about al-Ijma' and other scholars. And it's, even Ibn Taymiyyah, he has mentioned some of the issues of ijma' between the ummah, and this is known by scrutinizing and thoroughly studying, the Quran and Sunnah, that it is well established. Okay, so this is what he wants to say to us, that the legality of the ijma'. Yes.
However, some persons have mentioned Ijma without having a reference to the Quran and Sunnah. For example, al-mudaraba, which means silent partnership. But this example is incorrect, for mudaraba was practiced in the pre-Islamic days, especially Quraysh, as trade was the most common among them, and the owners of the wealth used to hand over it to the workers. Also, the Prophet ﷺ used to trade with other people's wealth before his prophethood, as he did with Khadija's wealth. The caravan on which was Abu Sufyan was, most of it was Mudaraba with Abu Sufyan and others. So when Islam came, it was acknowledged by the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and as such, his companions would travel with other people's wealth, and he did not prevent that the Sunnah in his words, his action, and his acknowledgement. So when he acknowledged that, it became established by the Sunnah.
Yes, or more than that, we can say that the wahi, the wahi, if the Prophet ﷺ had not mentioned anything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have mentioned something if it was not valid. Okay, but it's very clear. Yeah, mudaraba means, if a person who is skillful in certain, field, and he said to a person, let's make a partnership through my endeavors and efforts and experience. I'll work and you finance me. You give the financial, needed for the project, and we will divide, the profit into halves or into whatever they agree in between them. Okay, so this is called mudaraba. Okay, and it's known in Islam. The categories of ijma', inshallah, we'll talk about it next week. الإجماع القولي أو الفعلي, الإجماع الصريح, some ulama they say, which is consensus by word or action, which is very clear and plain that there is ijma', and there is ijma' sukuti. Inshallah, next week, we'll talk about it. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you for attentive listening. If you have questions, you can ask. If not, then we can conclude, inshallah, the class today. Some ulama, they add to the category, if you remind me next week, that there is a third category, which is, called ijma', from due to differences. Okay, مركب من خلاف. Okay, so inshallah we'll talk about it, inshallah, next week. By the way,
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
Sheikh, I have one question. Just maybe I didn't get it properly. If the ijma is between 100 ulamas and 99 of them agree on it, and one of them oppose or does not agree with it, so that ijma is considered like, what is the ruling on that?
Yeah, the majority of the ulama, they say this is not ijma' unless all of them agree about it. Okay, there are some ulama who regard that as ijma'. Okay, I can't remember now examples of that, but it depends. It depends on what are the issues. Let me look into it. Again, we say all of this are matters pertaining to establishing what's ijma' from that which is not ijma'. Okay, there was a guy who tried to write a book, and he said, I'll write this book so that the people will not, take any opinion aside or away from the four madhabs, from the four schools of thought. He wants to confine the opinions about fiqh to those four madhabs, as he thinks that whatever in these madhabs should be regarded, outside of it we should not take. Okay, so there are differences between these madhabs. So he started to establish, that people should not, go to select any opinion aside from these four madhabs. Okay, and he went to a alim and he asked this alim, can I, publish my book? He said, I'll ask you a question. Has any one of those four ulama, means Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Imam Ahmed, and Imam Shafi'i, those four Imams. Has any one of them said what you are saying? He said, no. Then he said, how come you would confine the people to that? Yani, you are refuting yourself. You got the point? You got the point.
Subhanallah,
So,
yes.
yes, Ijma' of the Ummah, okay, yani, it should be in its totality and its majority. This is, some of the ulama, they regard this, okay? But some others, they said no, okay? There should be all sometimes very difficult, especially in, some, minor issues. For example, Salah. Salah is often done by the Prophet ﷺ and well explained, okay? The ulama, they said there are 200 issues, of differences in Salah. Not to go to Hajj. The Prophet ﷺ did Hajj only once. You got the point? So what about the differences in Hajj? Too much, huh? So sometimes when we talk about Ijma', usually the Ijma' of the Ummah is well established, and known, due to the evidences. Okay. Again, we go back and say, if the Ummah in its entirety, the ulama of the Ummah who are known of ijtihad, they agreed about a matter, then it should be regarded. And we are not talking about common people or masses, because when تطع أكثر من في الأرض يضلوك عن سبيل الله, if you will obey most of the people, they will, you will be in difficulty in that. And also Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to the Sahaba, who were better than us in trying to establish the deen, لو يطيعكم في كثير من الأمر لعنتم. يعني the Sahaba, may Allah be pleased with them, if the Prophet ﷺ would have, took their opinions, it would have made, made it difficult or burdensome to the Ummah. So the deen is well established. The Quran and the Sunnah. The Ijma' of the Ummah is known. There are books of Ijma', and these issues are well established, alhamdulillah. There will be, inshallah, discussion later. We can discuss. There are matters that might need some ulama to talk about and to find out what's the ruling about it, because it is new matters, newly innovated matters that ulama need to make qiyas, analogy, what you can say, analogical deduction, to try to see where it fits in the Sharia and how can we decide about it. Okay. For example, the tabarru' bil a'dha, donation of human being organs. Okay. They said after death. Okay, after death. Okay. It is a disagreement. Nobody can say that the ijma' of the ummah is, it's okay to use that. Why? Because the ulama disagreed in this regard. Some of them, they said, and it doesn't have any likeness before at the time of Sahaba or at the time of the Tabi'in or Tabi'in in the three blessed generations. Okay. Why? Because some ulama, they disagreed and they said the human body is not his position to decide about, after his death. Okay. To give his heart to someone and to give his kidney to someone's, because it's not his consent or his heart. It is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it is a disagreement between the ulama. Nobody can decide that there is ijma'. Those who agreed and they said it's okay because anyhow it will, turn into dust or it will be ruins. It can be used for others. This is their opinion. Is it the most correct or that is the most correct? One needs to go and look into the all evidence. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in knowledge and faith. Knowledge is so vast, so big. Okay. So we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to increase us in knowledge and faith, forgive us, guide us to the way most pleasing to Him. I hope, inshallah, It's clear. The matter is clear.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. I have one more question, but it is not related to this. If I can ask.
Yeah, تفضل.
We say that Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha, she is Ummahat al-Mu'mineen, right? But from the Quran, there is ayah, in which it says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Ma kana Muhammadun aba ahadim min rijalikum. Muhammad is not the father of any of your men. So I'm getting a bit confused, and we say Aisha radiallahu ta'ala Ummahat al-Mu'mineen, and from here the Quran says that Muhammad is not the man. So if you can just explain on this.
First of all, mothers of the believers means due to the fact that they cannot marry them at all. Okay? After the death of the Prophet, or even if the Prophet would divorce, would have divorced some of them. Okay? They are regarded like their mothers. Okay? The Prophet is not a father of anyone because it's not a parenthood here. It is just to say that the wives of the Prophet are like mothers for the believers. They cannot marry them. So they are not like mothers. They can, for example, see them. As you know, that these wives of the Prophet were barred and were veiled, barred behind the doors or walls, or veiled in front of the Muslims, okay, except for their relatives and their cousins. But mothers of the believers means they cannot marry them at all. Okay. Does this answer your question or?
Yes, Sheikh. Jazakallah. Jazakallah khair.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair. May Allah bless you. We'll stop here, inshallah, and next week see you, inshallah, or on Friday, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.